3 higher ed authors, 100 plus college and university presidents, dozens of actionable insights for academic leaders. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available on Amazon. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio here again on the second recording of 2023. Actually, third if you count my interview of ChatGPT, but I'm not sure if that does count. It was very interesting to put together. More interesting, my guest today, because she's like one of the best people I've ever met. Period. And I love her and she's the best. And I'll just keep saying that over and over. But of course, I would encourage everybody to pick up Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, the book that Kate Colbert and I just put out in over Thanksgiving of 2022. As we record this episode, we're basically just a day over 6 weeks old. We've had tremendous feedback and support from the community. I want to say thank you again. I can't say it enough. I probably will say it every episode for the year here, because how much I appreciate all of you that support the podcast. And it's just overwhelming sometimes to see everybody kind of come back and go, oh, we support you guys. It's humbling, to say the least. This episode's important because, the EdUp community is all about supporting people and them being part of the EdUp journey, and then us always checking in, right? Because we want to check in on people, find out what they're doing. So we call this an EdUp catch-up episode, and it's with somebody that you know very well. In fact, you may know her. She is one of the very few, and I say very few because there are very few people that have their own sound. I don't know if it's trademarked, if I have to trademark it, or if she trademarks it, but here she is. Ladies and gentlemen, my Spanish is really terrible, but she goes by La Reina del Airhorn. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michelle Cantu-Wilson. She's creative director at Marquee Consulting. Michelle, what's up?
Hello, Joe. Hello, everyone. I seem to always start with laughter whenever I'm on your show.
Well, that's a good thing. We like to get you warmed up. So that's my Michelle button.
And I have a button. I feel like that is my claim to fame.
I'm going to take a picture of it because I have actually labeled it Michelle. So you'll see when I'll take a picture of it and I'll post it on LinkedIn, and it'll say all my different sounds, and then there's a Michelle button, and I just go. And every now and then I just hit it to remind myself that you're coming back. Welcome back as a guest, not a guest co-host this time. You're a guest. So you're playing the original role that you came on to EdUp for as a guest the first time that we talked, and then you started co-hosting. But you've had some career change going on. And so we want to catch up with you and find out what's going on. So tell us what's up.
Well, I left higher ed proper and moved higher ed adjacent, I guess, and moved into leadership consulting. It was a unique opportunity, one of those things that you're looking for your family, you're looking for your work-life balance. And it worked out perfectly to be able to stay in the game. Teaching in higher ed is my passion, and I'm able to, retain that world and stay connected to my people and focus on something that I'm really interested in, which is leadership.
All right. So Marquee Consulting, tell us what is Marquee Consulting? How does it work? What do you do as creative director? Kind of give us the once over.
So Marquee Consulting is unique in that it has two sides to it. There is Marquee Coaching and Retreats, which is my boss's area. And then there's LuxLead. LuxLead Institute is my area. And I'm developing a leadership institute where folks that are interested in taking it to the next level in leadership, but don't have the time to go back to get an additional degree, can come to us for micro-credentials on really timely topics, not the stuff that you might see in a 16-week course, but something that you need in the moment, like time management for higher ed specifically, or, the reset, hitting the reset button when a semester goes off track, motivating your staff whenever you're understaffed, really specific topics related to higher ed. LuxLead also will have an online course that is going to be launched globally that will allow people from all over the world to get a micro-credential in leadership or any particular topic. And then eventually we're going to focus on executive leadership, kind of doing a 360. I don't think, Joe, I know you're going to agree with me. I don't think our executive leaders get a fair shake at development. They don't get fair feedback. They don't get upward feedback because a lot of times people are worried about, saying the wrong thing or coming across the wrong way or retaliation in bad situations.
That's true.
And so I have met amazing executive leaders in my career, and a lot of them I've listened to on this podcast. We want to be able to support them by affirming those positive leadership traits. So I might come in and shadow you for a day. And then let's talk about your communication style. What's working? What about your team building style? What does that look like? I think we all need to hear what we're doing well. I don't think we do that enough in higher ed. And I want to give executive leaders that fair 360 assessment, discreetly. We're not going to announce everything to everyone. But yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And Marquis said, go do it. Let's see how it turns out. So
I like your style, dude.
We,
new
stuff. I got new stuff. I do like that because we're talking, it's funny. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, president, and we were talking about transparency, and we were talking about social media. There's looks on us as executive leaders. Everybody's looking at us, and you're right. It's like what you say and do in the court of leadership can and will be used against you. It's like the leadership Miranda rights, but it's typically not. It's typically not, hey, we're going to celebrate all the great things that you do. It's somebody's watching for the time you don't show up, and you had to go pick up your kids at school, so you didn't come to some event, and somebody goes, oh God, Michelle's not involved. Joe's not involved. So there's always somebody kind of behind you that's willing to kind of bring you down. So leadership's a tough game, and it's really important, I think, and I know you'll agree with me, to have an outside perspective on leadership. And higher ed is very specific for leadership because there's a stakeholder called a student that gets a consequence. Yes. Always the consequences on the student, positive or negative. So you have to have somebody that understands the landscape of higher education, but having a clean set of eyes, I think, is really important because it's like passing the coffee stain every day and you never wipe it up because you just see it all the time. So that outside perspective is important.
Yeah, absolutely. You made me think like 7,000 things while you were talking, which is why
that's what I do.
I am the smartest man alive.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm pulling out all the stops for you today.
You are. Let's do it. Let's play with it. You made me think about, this one phrase, think about your executive leader in higher ed. I serve at the pleasure of the board, right? That is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure. And when you serve at the pleasure of the board, you have to have a home team that is going to ensure that you are developing as a leader, and not out of fear of losing your job, but pride over the things that you do well. We kind of have to shift that narrative of pressure into pride. And so I think that that's an important thing to do in higher ed. Leading from the outside in is also a very special place to be. And I love the organizations that are higher ed adjacent that do that. They agitate productively from the outside. I think that's important. And what I like about a lot of organizations like that and like us is we've been inside.
Yeah.
Right. I'm retaining my adjunct status. I will always teach. Right. So I will stay inside. But I think it's important that, like you said, it's a unique industry. And we have our very specific needs, and our main stakeholder is a student. And so leadership impacts, whether you see them or not in real time, they have a gathering momentum kind of effect. So what is the cost of a bad leader, Joe?
Oh, tremendous. A cost of a bad leader is all the people that quit and all the hiring dollars you have to put back in, and the priceless dollars of culture destruction that you can't even put a price on it.
Culture destruction. I love it. And I'm talking, all of it. And so numbers, let's say you got a dean makes $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they're not producing and they're not doing their work. Now add benefits to that, right? Now you're paying what, $150 for someone to not do their job, right? And if we are in a situation in higher ed where we are understaffed and we have applicants who are ghosting us at interviews, right? And quitting on the first day, we know this is happening.
It is.
Then how is the focus going to be shifted naturally towards developing better leaders when you're in survival mode? You need folks to come in from the outside and do that kind of work that you can't do in the moment, but we can build capacity to develop that leadership pipeline. And I'll say it, we got to
wait, before you say it.
Okay, go.
You can't handle the truth.
All right, go ahead.
I love it. I love it. We got to usher people out of the profession if they're hurting students and they're hurting the culture. I remember when I started my doctorate, Dr. Matthews at the University of Houston, Clear Lake, she said, first class, first day, what do you think you want to study? We're going to start writing in this class this semester. It's a very advanced program. And I said, I think I want to study leadership in higher ed. She said, do you want to have a job when you're done?
Ooh.
I mean, she meant that like honestly, and it was a good question. It wasn't just, a slight, it wasn't a jab. It was, do you know what you're getting into? Are you prepared? Right?
Yeah.
That's how sensitive this topic is.
Yeah.
We got to do it. We have a stakeholder, they're paying us to do this work.
I'll tell you one of the things that I love about your change. First of all, before I ask it, a career change is hard. And we're talking about career changes in higher ed, people coming into higher ed, many people wanting to leave higher ed because they're either fed up with it. A lot are fed up with it. But some love it and want to stay in it like yourself, but have to make a career change for various reasons. When all you've known is higher ed too, you've been in for, and we know people like that, right? They've been in higher ed 20, 30 years. I am one. Like I started in higher ed at 23, here I am 20 something. I won't age myself years later. And still in it. I don't even know what else I would do. And it's scary. How do you work through that with yourself and your family? Because I can guarantee you there is somebody on this phone call right now going, how the heck did she do this and make a career change and with a big smile on her face? And there's risk there and there's a little bit of nerves. What does that look like?
I appreciate you asking this question because it is something that we don't talk about, and there's no reason to not talk about it. It's just like the whole salary thing, don't talk about salary. Let's talk about everything. We are all people trying to do a good job, trying to be the best we can, take care of our families and put something good into the world, right? So let's be honest with each other. So I'll be honest with y'all. Leaving higher ed proper, I had one scary night where I questioned my decision. But because I had done the work of reaching out to my network, reaching out to my mentors, reaching out to people who have helped me in some way, who know me and my intentions, I made an informed decision. I listened to podcasts on what it means to leave higher ed, even though I didn't really fully, right? I reached out to people across my career from public ed, all the way to higher ed, because I did, 13 years in public ed as well. And it really came down to my husband and my kids listening and being supportive, because ultimately I was doing it for them. This job allows me the flexibility to be more present. And I'm looking for that right now. My kids are 16, 13, and 10, and they need a different kind of mom than they did when things were more automated, right? It's a different world post-pandemic, and they require, in their healing of everything that they missed during that time and having to change schools and all kinds of things, they require a different kind of parenting. And so I was very intentional about making sure that that was a move that I could make. And my boss is amazing and requires things like, we got to meditate, we got to focus on our mental health, we got to work out, we want longevity. We have to, just get outside and be in nature. He really wants us to be people first so that we can be authentic in our service. That was in alignment with what I wanted to do. But I will call out the people who I went to immediately. It's a group called the Tejanex Compadres. We say Tejanex as another, a spinoff of Latinx, and Compadres is like your family. And so it's 4 leaders that I know in higher ed here in the Houston area. Well, not in Texas. And we just have a group chat. And when I need something and they need something, that's who I go to. And so I went to the council, as I call them.
Brain trust.
What do y'all think? So I did it with advisement. I did it with an informed outlook. I did it bravely because my intentions are good. And I did it without burning any bridges. Because I love the people that I worked with. I will always be here to support them. But staying in that situation, in that environment, was not allowing me to be the best mom that I could be. And that was my motivation, truly. Also, I'm a creator. Like, I'm a creator. And when
yes, you are.
I have a job description. I love my job. It was
yeah.
Yes, there we go. It was a great job, but there's so many different things that I want to do. And my boss says, this is yours. Create the Lux Lead Institute. Be who you are. Just make sure that we're impacting people in a positive way. We want to leave a good footprint, right? And so I think at this point, I'm 48. I'm not 25 like you.
Oh, yes. 24.
If I'm going to make a jump, Joe, if I'm going to make a move, it's time to do it. It's time to transition and see if I can do something that has been developed by me with my intentions and my vision and my enthusiasm. So yeah, long answer, but that's it.
You know that the world of higher education is experiencing evolutions and revolutions. You want to be part of the progress. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education with insights from more than 100 college and university presidents, will show you how. Get your copy of Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education now on Amazon right away. We think you're going to love it. It's
Amazing.
Well, it's an important answer.
Welcome to the real world.
I think that's important because, when we're talking about the real world, the parenting part is a part of this. The work-life balance is a part of this. Higher ed, I will say, and you know this, Michelle, a lot of times, even pandemic disruption, we kind of are, going back to what we knew before. There are a lot of evolutions in the world of work now and how people are experiencing work or having relationships with work and how they're balancing home. Higher ed is kind of boxy in that you have to serve students on particular times and timelines and so on. And then we're trying to balance, okay, how do we be real people and serve these students and not just fall back into what we were doing? Getting to my point, mid-level management is an important part of what you're doing and where your focus is, because let's be real here, guys. If you actually look at the spectrum of leadership in higher education, we all know this, and you've talked about this before, a white male dominated leadership structure in higher ed exists. If you look at the multicultural majority of the student and who needs to serve those students, it means you need more diversity in leadership. Yep. There are a ton of diverse, amazing leaders in middle management within higher education. When you look at age as a factor, right? Most presidents, if you look at the presidential average age, it's still in the 60s or 70s. So getting to the highest level is really hard. I don't know if that's by design or because we don't like to change things, but let's just, say, but you have a lot of diverse candidates in middle management that are going to ascend to those levels, but they do need training because the student's different now. So the leadership structure that exists now to be a president or be a VP of something and what will be needed in 5 to 10 years is different. And so how do we train those middle managers to be ready for the different Gen Z student that's going to be putting demands on us?
Yeah, excellent. I think that's a great observation. They are in a position where so much flexibility and adaptability is required of them. And those are actually buzzwords right now. I do a weekly review of leadership articles and leadership research so that we can make sure that we're serving people where they are. And so, when you ask the question, how do we do that? We do that in real time. Let's do a little case here. So let's say you have someone like a student services advisor, right? They do advising of students. They have a ratio of about 1,200 to 1. Okay. somewhere around that range. They do exceptional work. Let's say his name's David. David does exceptional work. We have a skeleton crew going on. We need someone to fill a position. David is a natural fit. He's going to move up. He's going to be a director of student services. Now he's got a team of 14 advisors underneath him, right? And they all have that ratio of 1,200 to 1. David being able to do his work as a student services advisor does not immediately transfer to David being able to support 14 student services advisors. There is a gap in learning there. And the applicability doesn't transfer, right? So the way that he would treat his students is not the way he needs to treat grown people in the workplace who have their own lives and their own challenges and their particular development needs. So what I think is important for those level leaders is that you meet them where they are. And so David might need some foundational leadership training on communication, professionalism, the performative aspect of leadership. We get sick too. We have sick children, our cars break down, things happen to us, but we don't get to bring that to the workplace and showcase it if we're leaders, because we need to take care of the people in the workplace that's happening to, who also have a job to do. Self-awareness, perception is reality. The way that you look, the way that you talk, the way you present is all under a microscope. David needs a quick training that is going to get him up to speed on how to be a good leader. And enrolling him in a leadership program would be a great idea, but there may not be time for that. That might be the long-term step. What do you need right now for those mid-managers that can support them immediately in the workplace? And that is where this type of training comes in. So as far as Gen Z students go, I think there are a lot of misperceptions about that generation. We have a tendency to want to attribute characteristics to them that are misplaced or misunderstood. So they are, addicted to their phones. Okay, well, let's talk about what they're doing on their phones. Let's be more specific about how they use their phones, as opposed to just the behavior of having their phones. They are, I've heard, they're lazy. They don't want to work hard. Oh, that's a tough one. I've taught those students. I will continue to teach those students, and I'm raising, those people. They want to work smarter, right? So my Ava, my middle child, who's 13, I do 7 things on my phone, and she interrupts me and she's like, Mama, just click here. From 7 steps to 1 step.
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
They're frustrated with us making everything so hard.
Yeah. 2 clicks. What are you talking about?
They want productivity. They want access. They've got information at their fingertips, and they want to be recognized for making work easier. And so
I like what you said about not just having the phone, but what are they doing on the phone? And if you have kids of that age, or any kids around you of that age, they are really learning. You're using YouTube to learn. You got ChatGPT. They're using apps and the phone to complement their learning. They go to school and it's like, oh, how do I do this faster? How do I get this answer? It's like a collator of learning. They're really using YouTube even, looking up something on YouTube. It's a learning moment. They're not just messing around all the time.
Yeah, they're hacking traditional learning models.
Ooh, I like that. That's good.
We cannot blame them or make that into a negative thing when they are the future leaders. Hacking the system has to be seen productively so that we can fully appreciate what these young people or what these people bring to the workplace.
Well, the workplace is not just young people, though.
No.
Right? It's intergenerational at this point, and isn't that causing a lot of consternation amongst the leadership?
So I do think that I love that word consternation because it's so old school. And I think the old school versus the new school is the ultimate competition in the workplace right now. There is a term that my friend Carmen at AQ and I came up with yesterday in a conversation about, incidentally, the future of higher ed. And it was, struggle glory.
Amazing.
Love it.
Thank you. It's the idea that, there's glory in the struggle, and that the only way that you can advance in leadership, the only way you can advance in the workplace is if you fail multiple times over and over. You got to get those experiences in so that you can be successful. This generation, Gen Z, is teaching us that you can be successful on the first try, because you have learned very quickly, you have adapted easily, because the world makes sense in your brain, because you have access to all information. So there are no barriers. So that struggle glory that we're going to trademark as a phrase, that struggle glory doesn't resonate with them. That doesn't motivate them. What motivates them is working smarter, having more time to live and appreciate life, and also this, intergenerational appreciation as opposed to conflict. Gen Z really appreciates face-to-face communication, unity. They appreciate social justice efforts. They like equality. They like equity. And so any type of divide that we're trying to create in the workplace is not going to work out the way that we think it might, if we're trying to advance leadership in the direction that it needs to be to serve these young people in their development.
So good. I think you're so right. And it comes back to why having a fresh set of eyes, looking at a consultant to help with leadership is so important. One of the things that you said earlier in the episode was agitate productively. And I went, ooh, that's really good too. Your trademark machine over here. Agitate productively is right. We have to be challenged. And sometimes it takes somebody outside to challenge us. I will tell you, dead honest with you. I have somebody from the outside, a consultant that has, I don't know how many years of experience in online higher education that I have over here, not affiliated with the university, that says, hey, Joe, you're on track, or hey, Joe, you're not on track, or why don't you try this or work that? Because I need that. I got to have it, because nobody's going to give it to me internally the way I need to hear it, like unfiltered sometimes. You know what I mean? And I know you, Michelle, you will tell it like it is too. And sometimes it's what we need to hear, not what we want to hear.
Yeah. And I think we can do that. Direct communication is the fastest way to a solution. I appreciate that we are polite in higher ed. I appreciate that there is a bureaucratic system that has existed for generations, but it's not serving us right now. People are exhausted and they need to be motivated by a different kind of leader. And if we don't accept that, we're going to continue to see decreased motivation, attrition, HR issues. We got to work on the culture, and culture starts with leaders.
Truth. So what's this thing about a podcast that you're doing? What's going on?
Yeah, so podcast is it's kind of the low-hanging fruit, because you've taught me so much as the podcast leader in the nation. But it is called Lead Well with Dr. Michelle, and it is just a short check-in for leaders who need real-time motivation and information on what's going on in leadership, right? So it might be, what are the 3 best things that leaders do? It might be, what is your leadership horror story? It might be what is your why? But there'll be short check-ins, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, where leaders can get connected and get some motivation. One of my favorite things to do is just pour into people and make them believe, in themselves. And that self-actualization process only happens when someone is motivating from the outside, right? Someone has to believe in you first. And so I want to be that person for leaders. And it's going to be kind of a survey. Like I told you, I do this scan of what's happening in leadership on the beginning of the week. I want to make sure that we're staying up to date with what the world is saying to us about leadership. So mental health in the workplace, that's a big deal, Joe.
Yeah, big time.
How do we do that? How do we act that out in the workplace as leaders? Do we address it at all? Are we giving people days to just no email days so they can work? Right? Are we protecting their time instead of filling them with meetings that we don't need to have? Retraining or retaining talented people. That's something that's in the news right now. Our people are jumping around looking for better opportunities. Why would they stay at your organization? What are you doing to actively?
Well, in the book we surveyed, I don't know how many higher ed leaders, like 250, and it came back to where a quarter were saying that they're kind of unhappy with their situation. And you start looking around you, and how does that affect the student in the end? If you have somebody that's not completely loving what they do, we're in a tough business for you to kind of half-ass it. I don't know if saying that makes me in the profanity section of the podcasting world, but you get the point.
You got bleeped. Hey, I have an example for that. My friend Liz, at my old workplace, I remember one day she was, having, as we all do, a bad day, different family issues or whatever was happening. It was kind of an external issue. I remember it wasn't related to the workplace. And so we were standing in the middle of the hallway, and I'm just trying to build her back up, and I'm listening because she's my friend and I care about her. Which is a good sign of being happy in the workplace, is when you have good friends there. But I remember a student walked up in the middle of her kind of having this mini meltdown, right? She turned around, looked right at that student. Yeah, how can I help you? What do you need? I'll walk you over there. You know what? I'm going that way anyway. Let me walk you over there. And as she's walking away, immediately she jumps into, what's going on? How are you? We're so happy to hear you today. Like, she turned on that performative aspect of leadership to be a servant leader to a student in need. But Liz still needed that support in the workplace of having the space to bring her life and her reality there and know that she's going to be recognized, supported, and grown as a leader, so that she can turn around and be that person to other people. I think there is this misperception that work is just work and your colleagues are just your colleagues. Like, how is that motivating? If you tell me, right? Come in, work 8 to 5, pick up your paycheck and leave. Like,
yeah, it has to be fun. And we change the lives of people every single day in higher ed. If that's not fun to you, if it's not fun to see the consequence of that hard work, then you're in the wrong business, right? That's what it's all about in the end, is having that moment of fulfillment to say, oh, I did good today, helped somebody.
Yeah. And if that leader, if Liz is that leader, had not been able to turn around and remember what her ultimate goal was, which is student success, right? If she's not plugged into that, what about her subordinates?
Yeah.
Right. And how many, we're talking, what did we say? 1,200 to 1 ratio. How many students are we impacting negatively when we have a culture issue in the workplace and we're not doing something about it?
Love it. Well, I'm going to ask you about the future of higher ed, but before I do, I got to assume somebody's going, you know what? I'd like to have Michelle come over to my institution. Am I cutting out again?
Yes.
Oh my God. All right.
Okay, there we go. There you go. You're back.
Eldon's in for editing Wonderland here in these last couple of episodes. All right, let me start again. 3, 2. So Michelle, before we get to the last question on the future of higher ed, because I'm going to ask it, how do we get a hold of you? If somebody's here going, you know what, Michelle, I love you. I love the work you're doing. I love the move you made. I need some outside counsel. I'd love to have you come in and train with my middle managers or top level executives. What's the path to get a hold of you? How does it work? What do we do?
Well, hopefully they know that I'm accessible to them on social media where we all met, which is LinkedIn. That's where you need to be. And if you're not, you need to work on that because the community is there. It is strong. It will support you and empower you. And that's the best part of what I'm seeing in higher ed right now. You can reach out to me directly, Michelle@marqueeinc.net. We've got our website. We've got different spaces where I exist in social media. I'm accessible. I'm here to help. Really excited about building a team in the future to do this work, nationally. So yeah, I hope people know that they can find me. Definitely first place to look is LinkedIn.
Love it. And so what's the future of higher ed looking like, Michelle? You've been in these conversations as much as anybody these days. Give us what you got.
I'm going to give you 2 things. One, I think as the guard changes in higher ed, which we know it is, retirements and exit strategies and things like that. As the guard changes, we need to accept that higher ed is going to be uncomfortable for a little bit as we figure out what leadership needs to look like in the future. I think a useful tool for figuring that out is your book, Commencement. I think because it is current, it is now, it is within the past year. It's the best research that we have of what higher ed leaders are looking at. Let's look to them. You've collected these stories, these anecdotes, this information. Let's all get unified behind, like I said on LinkedIn, a common read that is going to pull us together on what the efforts should be going forward. You think about Linda Battles, in online universities. You think about people like Dr. Tony Cruz from Miami-Dade, Hialeah. Those might be different types of leaders in different institutions, university versus community college, online versus face-to-face, but leadership is the same. We're trying to retain good people and serve students, right? So if we look at that resource, I think the future of higher ed and that discomfort we're going to experience, it will be lessened because we can navigate our way through together, right? By looking at the same information. The other thing is, I think it looks like relinquishing the grasp on control of students' careers, and their futures, and letting them help us decide what higher ed should feel like. Multi-generational workplace for sure, multi-generational higher ed population of students, very diverse populations with different aspirations. I think we need to listen more. And so the future of higher ed might require a little bit of a pause where we do things like more focus groups, more student interviews, more student panel discussions. Not so much, the reverse of, we do a project and we might have one student sitting at the table. No, I think students need to tell us what they need because the workplace is changing. They're trying to keep up, but they're also trying to create opportunities for themselves that don't look like the way that we came up in the workplace, right?
Yep.
We might have gone through a traditional way, working and then advancing to leadership, getting those degrees. They might want to be business owners starting on day one.
Yep.
How do we help them with that, right? They might know they're into leadership. How do we help them with that? We do that by listening. So I encourage higher ed leaders and practitioners to really focus more on talking less and listening more, and using that student voice to motivate the conversation and the direction of the institution.
I love it. I love talking to you, Michelle. I could talk to you all day. You know that. And of course, you're welcome back anytime here on EdUp. It's your home. And we got to get you more episodes. Of course, I encourage everybody, as soon as you have you have your RSS feed out for your podcast yet?
No, not yet. We're doing the background work of making sure we have enough episodes to, get people's appetite going. But we are going to be joining, right, the EdUp Experience podcast.
Absolutely right.
Join the network.
Live well with Michelle is what it was, right?
Lead well.
Lead well with Michelle.
Yes. Yeah. Our
Dr.
belief
Michelle,
that Mark.
Lead well with Dr. Michelle. I love that little ring to that.
It's a little ring.
I like the ring to that. Ladies and gentlemen, you know her, you love her. She is Dr. Michelle Cantu-Wilson. She's creative director at Marquee Consulting. Anything else you want to say before you go, Michelle?
No, just Happy New Year to all. So glad to be connected back to the EdUp Experience podcast. Make sure you get the book.
Please do. And please make sure you're following Dr. Michelle on LinkedIn. She puts out great content. And if you're gonna be trained or want training in the world of leadership and higher ed, you can do no better than Dr. Michelle Cantu-Wilson. For more information, you know where to find her on LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. It's time to
Level up.
The beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you. Order your copy of Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education by Kate Colbert, Dr. Joe Salustio, with contributions by Elvin Freitas. It's higher education's must-read book of 2022. Discover how you can seize the moment to change higher education forever. Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, now available on Amazon. For bulk orders, contact Kate, Joe, or Elvin.